When we're talking about this bill, the first section, we're taking away the requirements for the use of the state standardized testing for the teacher evaluations. That's correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, in the second section, now, as somebody who's taught in the classroom, I'm very concerned about the wording where it says alternative assessments. Are we talking about, when we talk about alternative assessments in the classroom, as you had mentioned previously, we could be talking about something additional to evaluate. We could be talking about a portfolio. We could be talking about, now are we talking about that, or are we talking about an alternative way to assess teachers that may not be tied to student performance? Or maybe both, a little bit, you know.
Well, this will be up to the local school boards to determine. They will look towards state education to come up with a menu, as I said before, of what possible alternative assessments might be employed. And certainly portfolio assessments will probably be one of them.
And I do hope that that's an option. Now, under this bill, is there anything that would require, so we're talking about allowing the commissioner to determine. So before, and I can respect the fact that we're including local control with the negotiations, but before we do that, the commissioner has to determine what options they can choose from. So she's picking the menu as far as this goes. So what do we do if, isn't it true that under her selections, state testing could still be one of the options, but what if other options don't include portfolios or projects or things like that, and include maybe a departmental final exam, something like that? Is that a concern? Is that addressed in the bill?
What local districts would be allowed to do is come up with, they will look towards, I'm sure, the state education department for guidance, and they'll list what's on their menu, but that does not stop them from coming up with their own list that they can show to the state education department. Okay. And get that approved.
Okay, so under this bill, what you're saying, that actually is an important clarification.
Yeah.
Our local districts then can come up with their own choice. They can then go to the state education department, ask, is this something that's acceptable in the state ed? Is that, I just fear.
There's nothing in this bill that will bar them from doing that.
Okay, is there anything that would make the state have to respect that in this bill? That as far as...
We give the authority to the state education department to approve on the assessments that are going to be employed. Okay. So we give them that power, which is probably only right that they do. They are the state ed department. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Okay, I'm glad that that clarification was made. As you know, we've had a high opt-out rate of the state exams. My district particularly, 70% of the students are not taking the test. So my concern, as you can imagine, approaching this bill is that the same commissioner who's on multiple occasions said that she would withhold funds to my district because my students are not participating, that if she's determining where we go with these evaluations. Now, next question. Is there anything that changes? I see there might be a change whether we're using student growth to student learning objectives. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Each district will be required to make student growing adjustments either on an individual basis or by a group basis to see how they perform. That will be given to the local districts. Correct?
Okay, so instead, because under the current system, when we're looking at student growth scores, it's actually tricky because if you're teaching, for instance, an honors class, then in the beginning of the year to the end of the year, they may do nearly perfect, but then we're not showing growth. So that's a concern under the current system. So
Indeed.
That's being addressed.
We are well aware of some of the abuses in this where students were performing at a high level and then teachers were penalized because they didn't jump 10 points in their performance. And that is one of the things we're trying to cure with this new system.
Okay, that's excellent. And when we talk about student learning objectives then, because now we're looking at the other end of the spectrum, we might have students who are in special education. With the student learning objectives, that's a local decision. The teacher in the classroom and their local school district decides what those are, right? That's not set by the state?
Indeed.
Okay, that's another important thing. So we're shifting away from that. Now the next part here, you know what? I think you answered my questions. Thank you very much,
There
Mr.
you go.
Benedetto.
Thank you.
On the bill, Mr. Speaker? Okay, I wanted to approach this bill, and I'm glad we just had this debate because I had a number of concerns on the bill that are not addressed, and now I think we've addressed the bills, and as I understand, our transcript of the debate does kind of go to speak to the legislative intent of what we're trying to do. My concern, as somebody who's previously a high school certified 7 through 12 math teacher, as many people know, the 8th grade math students in our state, they're subjected to an 8th grade state assessment. Many of them are taking integrated algebra, so they're subjected to a Regents exam. And my fear under this bill, and I hope that local school districts will have that authority, as it sounds like they would, not have to now endure a departmental final exam, which would be a third exam on how we're basing this. So a number of those concerns I'm glad were addressed, and thank you very much.